Picture this. You can actually decide when and where you pass away. Instead of passing away on the hospital bed on a cold night, you decide you want to pass away surrounded by family and loved ones in the comfort of your own home. Life, death, and the choices we make in between. It's a journey that every human experiences, just in different ways. In our world, we come across many painful or tragic deaths that make our hearts drop. From patients dying of extreme pain to slow, agonizing deaths attached to a machine at the hospital, we see death as a vicious event and not a natural part of life. Some may even beg you to end their life or put a stop to their suffering, so it's not uncommon for people to sometimes prefer death over living due to constant pain and struggles. Assisted suicide, also known as physician-assisted death, is a practice where a doctor provides a patient with the means to end their own life, typically in cases of terminal illness and unbearable suffering. The topic itself brings a large number of debates around ethics and morals and has been a topic of discussion in recent times as well. Hello, and welcome back to our YouTube channel. Enter Jack Kevorkian, an American pathologist who was born to Armenian parents on May 26, 1928. He had immigrated from Armenia to Pontania in 1912, but moved to Paris in 1915 after the Armenian genocide, eventually moving back with his brother in Pontania. He showed an early interest in science and medicine, eventually earning his medical degree from the University of Michigan. Kevorkian initially made his mark in pathology, where he had developed an interest in the concept of euthanasia. He believed that people should have the right to choose a dignified end to their suffering. He had become a household name in the 1990s due to his contribution to the medical field. While some may see him as a hero who put an end to the suffering of chronically ill patients or people in pain, some see him as a dangerous person taking advantage of and playing with people's lives. Also known as Dr. Death, he remained consistent in his practices while maintaining ethical ground. In the 1980s, Kevorkian's career took a significant turn when he began to advocate for the rights of terminally ill patients to end their lives with medical assistance. He believed that individuals suffering from incurable and painful conditions should have the option to choose a dignified death rather than endure prolonged suffering. Before we move on to the patients the doctor had, let's have a look into the way Dr. Kevorkian assisted suicides. In 1990, Kevorkian introduced the Mersatron, a machine he designed to assist patients in ending their lives. A device that consisted of a gas mask fed by a canister of carbon monoxide, a highly poisonous gas, and the machine was called Mersatron, or Mercy Machine. This became a necessity because Kevorkian's medical license had been revoked after the first 2 deaths, and he could no longer have access to the substances required for the Thanatron. A valve must be released to start the gas flowing. Depending on the person's disability, a makeshift handle may be attached to the valve to make it easier to turn. By Kevorkian's estimates, this method took 10 minutes or longer before the person passed away. Sometimes he encouraged people to take sedatives or muscle relaxants to keep them calm as they breathe deeply of the gas. The third one is the potassium chloride, then a muscle relaxant, so that when you're unconscious, your muscles will be paralyzed. You can't breathe. Dr. Jack Kevorkian revealed to 2 of his patients before an assisted suicide. Janet Adkins. His first public case was Janet Adkins, a 54-year-old woman diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. This event highlighted Kevorkian in the national spotlight, subjecting him to criticism and getting embroiled in controversy. She and her husband were members of the Hemlock Society, a group which advocates for the free choice of rational suicide, and although her doctor had supposedly mentioned she had some years ahead of her, she chose to stick with her decision. Janet then passed away through assisted suicide, and this case gained the doctor some traction. This led to a case against him in court, and although the charges were dropped, the University of Michigan revoked his medical license and he was not allowed to work with patients anymore. Sherry Miller and Marjorie Wantz. Dear Dr. Kevorkian, help! I am a 41-year-old victim of MS. I can no longer take care of myself. Being of sound mind, I wish to end my life peacefully. I know I will only get worse. Please help me. Sherry Miller. This came in a letter from a woman named Sherry Miller to Dr. Kevorkian. Sherry was a 43-year-old woman suffering from multiple sclerosis, a chronic disease that attacks the central nervous system, leading to severe physical disability and pain. Marjorie, on the other hand, was a 58-year-old woman, although not terminally ill, had pelvic pain that had no clear diagnosis, causing her constant, unbearable discomfort. She had also tried to kill herself multiple times. You know how long it's been. It's gotten much worse. I wish we could do it, like she said. I wish we could have done it a year ago, 2 years ago, Marjorie said, expressing regret for not doing this earlier. I told her on the way up, if you don't want to do this, we can check into the motel, spend the night, and go back home. Yet, knowing if I take her back home, she's in the same situation she was when she left, and getting worse. Her husband revealed, showing his pain for the decision she had made, even though he wanted to be supportive regardless. Both women had reached the limits of their endurance and saw no hope for improvement in their conditions. In October 1991, they sought Kevorkian's help and ended their lives together in a motel room, with Kevorkian providing the means for their deaths. Thomas Hyde. In 1993, Kevorkian assisted in the death of Thomas Hyde, a 30-year-old man suffering from amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS, commonly known as Lou Gehrig's disease. ALS is a progressive neurodegenerative disease that affects nerve cells in the brain and the spinal cord, leading to muscle weakness, paralysis, and ultimately death. Thomas's condition had deteriorated to the point where he could no longer walk or speak clearly, and he was in constant pain. Desperate to escape the relentless progression of his disease, Thomas reached out to Kevorkian. Terminally ill Thomas, trembling in pain, told retired pathologist Jack Kevorkian, "I want to end this. I want to die," in a videotaped conversation a month before Kevorkian helped him commit suicide. Hyde, who suffered from Lou Gehrig's disease, released a valve that freed a flow of carbon monoxide to a face mask placed over his mouth and nose by Mersatron. Hyde was the 17th person to die in Kevorkian's presence since 1990. Hugh Gale. One of the most controversial cases was that of Hugh Gale, a 70-year-old man suffering from emphysema and congestive heart failure. Hugh's case became a focal point of legal scrutiny because, unlike many of Kevorkian's other patients, his condition was not immediately terminal, although it significantly impaired his quality of life. After his death in 1993, questions arose about whether he had been coerced or if it was his own decision. Hugh died as a result of inhaling carbon monoxide on February 15, 1993, at his home in the city of Roseville, Macomb County, Michigan, in the presence of his wife, Dr. Jack, and his assistants. The reason why this case was so controversial is due to the fact that evidence assumed the patient had tried to change his mind twice, lost consciousness, and passed away on the second request to take the mask off. The prosecutor in charge of the investigation, Carl Marlinga of Macomb County, said the document explained a death that was dramatically different than any other case of assisted suicide we've had in Michigan. It suggests that the death was involuntary and that at the last minute, the patient changed his mind, Marlinga said. But one of Kevorkian's lawyers, Michael Schwartz, defended the doctor. "They don't have anything to show that a crime was committed. These people are desperate." Ali Khalili. Khalili was the first member of the medical profession to commit suicide with Kevorkian's help. A 61-year-old man with bone cancer, Ali's cancer had metastasized, spreading throughout his body and causing excruciating pain. Despite undergoing numerous treatments, his prognosis remained grim, and he faced a future filled with increasing pain and debilitation. Ali, a physician himself, made the decision to seek Kevorkian's help, believing that ending his life was preferable to enduring the relentless progression of his illness. As an important figure in rehabilitative medicine in Chicago, He had spent much of his life trying to fix broken people and find joy in life again, and as a former colleague said, Dr. Khalili helped his patients believe again that life was worth living. However, it seemed as if the doctor did not believe in his own words and committed suicide through carbon monoxide poisoning, or the Mercitron. Judith Karen. A particularly heart-wrenching case was that of Judith Karen, a 42-year-old woman who suffered from chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. These conditions left her bedridden and in constant pain, severely impacting her quality of life. Judith's husband supported her decision to seek Kevorkian's help, but her case raised questions about the psychological factors involved in the decision to pursue assisted suicide. Judith had been severely overweight, and claims suggested that she actually had no diseases. She was 5'1" and weighed 269 pounds. When someone is 260 pounds, you easily get tired, L.G. Dragovic, the Oakland County medical examiner, said of Karen. When someone is depressed, you easily get tired. Dragovic said Karen's death was by injection. She made her own decisions as to what was best for her, and she was adamant about it, Karen's husband said. Obviously, I was hoping and wishing that there were better answers. She was suffering. Kevorkian's legal battles became a central part of his story of assisted suicide. Over the years, he was tried and acquitted in several cases. The prosecutions argued that his actions were murder, while Kevorkian and his supporters claimed he was providing a humanitarian service. The courtroom scenes were dramatic, with passionate arguments from both sides. Despite numerous legal battles and imprisonment, Kevorkian continued to advocate for the right to die with dignity. He wrote books, gave interviews, and remained a vocal proponent of his beliefs until his death in 2011. According to his lawyer, Kevorkian assisted in the deaths of 130 terminally ill people between 1990 and 1998. In each of these cases, the individuals in question allegedly were the ones who took the final action, which resulted in their own deaths, and Kevorkian allegedly assisted only by attaching the individual to a euthanasia device that he had devised and constructed to make their passing easier. The person would then push a button that released the drugs or chemicals that would end their own life. Hence, Dr. Jack was not the killer. Supporters argued that he provided a compassionate service, offering a dignified and painless option for those suffering unbearably from illnesses. Critics contended that his methods were reckless and that he played God, making life and death decisions without sufficient oversight. Kevorkian's life came to an end on June 3, 2011, when he died of complications related to thrombosis and kidney disease. His legacy is a complex and polarizing one, with his name evoking both admiration and condemnation. Although he is given credit for bringing the issue of assisted suicide to the public and the initiation of its legalization in many countries in the coming decades. Hey, do you have any ideas you want us to cover in the future? Just comment down below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Until then, see you next time.